Hey, it's Gil from
The Mind Podcast.
today's Mind Culture and Social Podcast. And you're listening to Pods Like Us.
Hello and welcome to Pods Like Us. I'm Martin Quibell, known to my friends as Marv, and today I'm talking with John Nicholson from Songwriters and Original Songs. How are you, John?
I'm very well, thanks, Martin. Very well indeed. Well, we finished our day here, so it's evening now, so we're just slowly running down towards the night time now.
I had my breakfast an hour ago.
I had my tea an hour ago, so there you go.
So,
But the future's looking bright, so don't worry about it.
That's true. That's true. So what was your introduction to podcasting then, John?
Oh, well, I've always listened to a few podcasts. I'm a big, I'm very much into original songs, and I basically hunted every source I could find to find anything I could about songwriting particularly. And as podcasts sort of came up, I started listening to them, and as you'd know, they're many and varied, and I suddenly I felt I found, to me, a gap, in the market, something I had not seen, what I call very personal original songs, and so I decided that I would have a crack myself. As you probably know, I'm always happy to talk about anything. So talking about one of my favourite topics, songwriting, was a quite next step. Unfortunately, I have a son in Australia, and as well as one in England, and my one in Australia is very techno, and he helped me set up a provider for me and helped me set up my podcast from the start, and he still keeps an eye on me to make sure I stay on the straight and narrow. And I basically jumped in and said, right, I'm going to give it a go. And, if I listened to episodes 1 and 2, they're a little bit sketchy now, but as time moves on, I'm sure, as you know, you just get pretty good at it and much more efficient, I guess, is the way it is. It doesn't take me anywhere near as long, and I probably get through quite a bit more, and I think it's probably more enjoyable for everybody. So that was my introduction. Was pretty much, I just decided I wanted to do something. I knew lots of songwriters. I thought their songs were worth hearing, and I thought I'd just jump in and have a go.
Wow, that's great. So describe your show then for anybody that's listening. What is it exactly that you do?
Yeah, well, the niche that I was looking for was, it wasn't just about original songs. I wanted it to be slightly personal. And what I mean by that is, I don't play a song on my show that I don't have some knowledge of the person or something about the person. Sometimes, occasionally, it'll be a very small bit, but most of the people that I play the song, I've met somewhere, I've talked to online, I've been in a group with them, I've been in a online group with them. they've been in something like February Album Writing Month, or for the 50/90 show, or I would do 100 Days of Songwriting, or people that do a magazine in England called Right Away Lyrics, Right Away Magazine. And so all those different places I know all these people from. So when I decided to do it, I didn't want to say this is Bob Smith and this is the song. I wanted to say this is Martin Quibell, known as Marv Smooth, and I met Martin about 3 years ago in Form, and I really liked the songs he played there. So I wanted to become more personalised. So my show is always around the fact that the people I'm playing songs of, I have at least some, even sometimes a little bit tenuous, but I always have some relationship with the people in some way. So it's more than just I'm playing a person. It's actually a story about a person as well. I say where they're from, what I know about them, what they're doing. And so that's the key. We normally, a standard show would have 8 original songs through it, and then a one segment, which is sometimes is my favourite songwriter, where I get somebody to talk about their favourite songwriter, or I also have another guy. So they come from around the world. I have a guy in Halifax called Ian Glencross, and he does book reviews on songwriting ones. And then we have the main guest. We then play 3 of their songs and have a talk to them, probably about a 25-minute segment, and plus 3 songs as well. So a standard episode would have 2 segments and 11 songs. That would be pretty much the standard. And there's I don't discount any style or anything. It'd be fair to say, probably I was surprised I haven't had a slightly wider range than I would have liked. A few real weird and wackies, but sometimes I think you attract the kind of people that they hear the general style of music you get. So we are sort of more in that sort of middle range of music, sort of singer-songwriter to edge of rock and stuff like that. A bit of electronic, but not really as much out there stuff. I was lucky to have on a guy I believe you've interviewed as well, G. Slade. I think that's right, isn't it?
Yeah, George Slade.
So, and George Slade, who's a rapper from Mississippi. So he's been on my show, and he was a featured artist, and we played 3 of his songs, and really good ones. So I do like to try and get some different styles, but generally speaking, as I said, I will say if you don't like this song, hopefully you'll like the next one. So it's all. So I take what I get. There's always songs out there. I get them, as I said. I think a lot of people assumed at the beginning that it was all about form, but it's not. I'd probably say about 2/3 maybe now of my songs are from Form and 50/90, but 1/3 of the songs are from completely different places. And in some of my early episodes, it was only half of them. And the same with my listeners. My listeners aren't all songwriters. I was actually talking to a few yesterday. They don't write songs at all. They just like listening to music. So I try and keep my show slightly balanced, so I don't go into too much technical stuff. I try and keep it at the level where people can just enjoy listening, even if they don't have a really strong depth of a knowledge of music or of songwriting process. So that's pretty much the show and how it goes about. It usually lasts around an hour, between an hour 15 and an hour 25. I don't think I've ever gone outside that range. And it's out every fortnight, Wednesday every second week.
Okay, so you're not, as a musician yourself, you're not actually going into the nitty-gritty of how the songs are put together, but it is your own history with music that made you come up with the show in the first place.
Yeah, sure. Well, I guess my love of music. I'm one of those people. I'm of that generation. When I was young, the thing we did. I mean, I'm showing my age now. We had cassettes, and you listen to shows and things, and you used to do your mixtape, and that was the most exciting thing was listening to the chart show and whatever it was, and hearing the new song, and I am an addict for the thrill of the chase. To me, the thrill of the chase. I want to hear that next great song, and so I hunt down any kind of original song that I can find. I just want to, and as soon as I hear another good one, I go, oh, it's fantastic. Of course I listen to older music and favourite music, but most of my time, my music is always searching for the next good song, the next good song and the next good song, both for myself that I write and that I hear other people play. And I just love it. And that's why I've joined so many groups. I just like hearing what other people do. And my experience in life is that if someone's enthusiastic about something, you're much more likely to get other people enthusiastic about it. And what I hope my enthusiasm for the original songs comes across in my podcast, and other people get enthusiastic about listening to it as well. Because I just love listening to other people's songs and seeing what the next one sounds like in the next one.
Well, I can definitely hear that enthusiasm when I've listened to you. You like the songs that you're choosing, and you like the subjects that you're talking about or that you've picked, and you enjoy the guests that you talk to as well, and that definitely comes across.
Good. And I'll be honest with you, I'm not, this is meant to be a compliment, no, I'm not particularly choosy. I don't sit down and think, I'm not going to ask that guy because I don't like him. If somebody approaches me and wants to put a song on, I'll put it on pretty much. If I know them and know of them, I'll give them a go, even if I think their music is a bit different, a bit, a little bit more unusual. I still, fortunately I do have such a wide taste in music that there isn't much to me that's weird, I'm definitely not just into mainstream music. I love lots of music that I can't do myself, and so just if people heard what I write, I'm still very comfortable with music well outside where I could actually play music. So yeah, I do have a very wide range of music. So I enjoy whatever people come up with. I can always see good in it. And, I do have a general, what I'd call that form ethos, that people put music out there and you can always find good stuff about it, can't you? And yes, I'm sure if I sat down and looked at every song I played, there are some I like a little, some I like a lot, and some I absolutely love, but there's always good things about every piece of music you hear.
That's true. And it's that love of different types of music that inspired you to take up music yourself then, obviously.
Yeah. Look, I'm probably, I talk to so many people that are in my boat, in that I played as a young guy and played in a few bands when I was a young bloke and played music, and reality hit home that I wasn't ever going to be a star pretty quick, and I went and did a day job, and then you have family and children, and the music, just the listening always stayed with me. A huge amount of listening always stayed with me, but the actual playing really, really drifted off until probably about 20 years ago. I actually, after playing in bands as a young bloke, I went back and relearned to play the guitar again. I actually went and met a guy, a wonderful guy, a guy in a wheelchair who'd been a great performer and had an illness and was so wheelchair bound. He taught a bloke called Morris, and he taught me guitar again. And once I could play guitar again, I started messing around, and very quickly after I started messing around, I wanted to write things, and probably I just wanted to write songs and music, and I'm very, very self-contained person. I've always been a pretty confident person, but yeah, I was knocked around as a young bloke about singing, and I didn't think I could sing at all, and so even when I played music, I never tried to sing much because I still remembered people saying when I was young that I couldn't sing, and it took a long time, probably 10 years ago, before I had the confidence to actually start singing in public. And then I started gigging a lot, and I've played hundreds and hundreds of gigs since then. And I don't have any illusions about what my voice is like, but I feel quite confident to do it now. But and I think that's why I'm so encouraging of songwriters, because I can see how I'm not sort of morose about it or upset. Life gives you all sorts of things, but unquestionably the hits I took in my music when I was younger certainly stopped me from doing as much in my middle years, without a doubt. And I hate to see that. And that's why I'm really keen always to encourage people to create music in a safe environment now, because I know there's a lot of people who are a lot more fragile than I am, and they, creative souls sometimes need to be nurtured, and so I think that people that go out there and put their music out in the community in any shape or form should be encouraged every opportunity you get.
So you mentioned earlier on about form. How did you get involved in form and any other songwriting challenges that you take part in?
Well, funny enough, I've been in lots of other stuff, but I hadn't been informed till about 4 or 5 years ago, and I am a administrator for a Facebook page called the Ukulele Songwriters Alliance, because I do teach ukulele, and I used to talk to this gentleman called Ian Glencross, who's he's a great guitarist too, but he's a great ukulele player. He comes from Halifax in the UK, and he approached me and said he was starting a ukulele songwriters. It's for only original songs, and wanted to know if I wanted to be part of it with him and help him set it up and get it going. And I'm still a moderator on that site to this day. And the tie-up to that was I'd been on that site for a while, and a lady who lives, only 2 or 3 hours, well, probably a bit more than that, 4 or 5 hours away from me in Australia, as you do, on sites, because I was another Australian, she sort of talked to me a couple of times, and she said to me, and her name is, I think her name's Tina D. Tunes, and she's been on Form quite a few years. She's not been on this year at all. And she sent me a message and said, John, why don't you have a crack at Form? So in that sort of roundabout way, I went through this place in England, and Tina came on and said to me, go and have a look at Form. And I still laugh about it that she encouraged me, and I got into Form, which has made a huge difference to me. And ironically, the one thing she always said was she couldn't perform. And myself and a few others kept encouraging her that she was so good she should perform. And I ran a small music festival last year, and she was third on the bill. And
Wow.
It was wonderful to hear her. And she has a wonderful voice, and she's a very good musician. People were quite blown away because she's very different, more classical in style, in pop songs, but she plays the uke and the cello and the guitar, and she has a wonderful voice, and so it sort of came around. It was wonderful that after she got me to Form, I got her back out performing. It was great.
So what were those formative artists or groups that got you inspired and into getting into music in the first place?
Well, my age, I had it's a very long story, but we'll just say it's easy to say, I have a sister who's 8 years older than me. And I was born when I was about 6 years old. I had a 16-year-old sister, and it was at the time that a band had just started called the Beatles.
Right.
And you can understand what a 16-year-old girl thought about the Beatles. As you know, it was a crazy time, and basically she used to convince my mum that I could listen to everything from the Beatles and even stay up and watch shows, and so as a very young child, I listened to all the Beatles music day and night. And so I can't deny that they were an enormous early influence on me, because they were pretty much all I heard. I mean, then all the other stuff around it, but she encouraged me and played her records every day to me. And so that was definitely my lead into music as a younger person. I then typically went through that early 70s, very much into the progressive rock, and then into rock, of the Led Zeppelins, and I went to see Black Sabbath and groups like Wishbone Ash and Uriah Heep, and all those bands around that time. I always kept an interest in most of the chagrin of all my friends, you know, who were all very much set in their ways, even at that age, I had a very wide range. I still listened to all the chart songs, and they couldn't understand how I could be listening to Carlos Santana at night with them, and then go and listen to, you know, what do you call it, glam rock groups in the afternoon, you know. But I always get that very wide range. Quite early on, Dylan became a very big influence to me. He's the only person that I would buy anything he put out. He's the only person. I judge a person usually on the song they put out today, and if I don't like it, I don't like it. But I'm completely blindfolded. I'm completely blind with Dylan. He can put anything out and I'll listen to it. So he was an enormous influence on me. And then influences, you know, I'm a great fan of, you obviously know Nick Hornby, you know, and Nick Hornby is almost exactly the same age as me, was born in a similar area to me, and has quite a few similar ethoses to me, I guess you'd say. And so I've always been attracted to his writings. And one thing I remember him saying, he wrote a book, I think it was called something like 33 Songs or something. And they weren't his favourite songs, but they were songs that were important at certain times of his life. And one of the songs that he loved was a song called Late for the Sky by Jackson Browne. Yeah. But the point about it was, he said, you know, I discovered that when I was 40 years old, because when Jackson Browne wrote Late for the Sky, it was 1976, and all I wanted to listen to was the Sex Pistols and the Clash. And I wasn't going to listen to about some American dude sitting there singing about a lovesick breakup song. And so I thought that was a really interesting concept, and quite right, that every year I go back and listen to kinds of music that I probably would never have listened to at certain times of my life, you know. And so, you know, I always I find his writing on music very interesting, and I see a lot of similarities. Yeah. So after that, I started to get into probably you'd call it, I like a lot of slightly alternative bands. A lot of bands that a lot of people some wouldn't know some of them, and some wouldn't. Groups like Calexico and Neutral Milk Hotel, slightly alternative. A lot of them are West Coast American bands, the Eels, Grandaddy, a lot of melody in their songs, but as I said, there's nothing I don't listen to. Really. I'll be honest, I'm not a huge jazz fan. I still appreciate it and I can respect it, but it isn't a music I sit down listen to. But once you get outside of that, there's not much I don't listen to.
Well, you won't be able to listen to the majority of my vinyl collection.
Oh, well, as I said, I respect it, and there's bits I love, and there's different kinds. To my taste, there's some areas where it becomes too, I don't know, like it's so improvised sometimes that it loses me, you know. I somewhere in my makeup, I like a bit more structure sometimes, and so yes, I can listen to some beautiful stuff. You know, I've listened to wonderful, you know, Coltrane stuff and other famous people, loads of them. And there's some bits I love, you know, but when the guy goes off and does 20 minutes of improvisation in jazz, I sort of get, just for me, because I'm always looking for the structure in it, and that's not what it's meant to be, you know. So yeah, I do like bits of jazz, and I sometimes wish I could do some, and it's tricky. My fingers aren't what they were trying to play some of those jazz chords. I know that.
I think because the Beatles were a big influence on you when you were younger, I think that might have actually have made you more open musically, because they're a band that famously, you know, you'd have an album definitely in the later stages of the Beatles, post 65, and no song would ever be similar to the one before. You'd have such a variation of styles, especially when you get to the stage of like Sgt. Pepper, Revolver, and the White Album. I mean, you've got songs there that are so completely different to each other. The White Album, you've got avant-garde, you've got proto-heavy metal, you've got folk, you've got attempting to do reggae on Obla Di Obla Da. So there's that variation there. So perhaps that was very influential on your wide taste in music.
And it's a very interesting thing because people have this discussion a lot nowadays about the fact that people, generally speaking, people aren't album listeners anymore. They're song listeners.
Yeah.
You know, and people keep asking me. I'll get from all sorts. As you probably appreciate, from all the different places. I mean, I get asked a lot of questions, and one of the common questions is, what sort of thread do I need to put into my album, and how should it flow, and what's the best way of doing it? And I don't know the answer anymore, because I think the answer is, if you're talking to me personally, I still love to get an album and see it as a point in time and a group of songs and listen to them in one hit, and it's fantastic. But I'm in the minority. The majority of people, if you give them an album, they listen to song 2 and 3, and if they don't like it that much, they put it down and they never listen to it again, or they might pick it up and then play 8 there. It's all what I call the Spotify, and it's all about tracks. And I know we did that to some extent, but it is interesting that the Beatles actually were a band where a lot of their albums, if you really sat down and listened to them in one hit, they don't actually fit perfectly together, as you said, because they're so different. It's really interesting, even within a record, let alone across records. But it has changed. If you want to get your songs heard, you do have to hit people quick and early, because if people don't like what you're playing them after a few seconds, they're gone. That's it. And people don't have the same patience for a song to develop now, in my view, as they used to. And that's just how it is.
It could be a product of the times in a way, because everything is so here and now. In this day and age, that might be simplifying it slightly. But...
Oh yeah, I don't think it's a thing that's unique to music. I think we are in a very quick gratification cycle. Things will change. It'll be different in 20 years' time, I'm sure. Things go round and round, But at the moment, people want quick gratification these days, and I understand that. And people want to get their songs heard, then they've got to play that game or just go to their, what I call the more niche groups. But it'll change around. Things always change around. They just, we'll go through another cycle and suddenly we'll be back to concept albums again,
Absolutely. Well, I hope so, because I like the art form that is an album. I like that as a whole concept. I'm from the days when, I've still got vinyl, so I still like vinyl, because you've got the whole aesthetic of the music's there, and then there's been some thought put into the presentation of it as well, with the cover. So, I still remember as a child buying, or as a young adult buying albums, and you put the music on, and you'd have the album on that long, or for that long a period of time, because I used to just trawl through all and make sure that I read every single thing that was written on that, on there, who did what and everything, and there were special times, and so like I said, there's almost a romanticism, and I'm nostalgic for that sort of thing, so it's probably different.
Look, I have most of my music in digital form now, but I would say one of the most exciting days of my life was going and picking up my swag of CDs for my first album when I made it. It was just brilliant. I had this, big pile, whatever it was, 200 CDs of my album, and it was just awesome. That was so exciting. But and the truth was, the vast majority of the ones I sold, I did sell a few. I was quite pleased, but they were nearly all digital. But having those in your hand was just fantastic. I loved it. Lovely photo. My wife took the photo of me and dressed up and standing by the side of the road with my guitar, and she's a good photographer. And it was just, and having this CD, it wasn't vinyl admittedly, but having this CD in my hand, it was really, really cool. Really cool.
Yeah, both the albums that I had on CD, that was cool as well. I thought that because even things like on the CD itself, on the disc, I've got the picture on the disc as well on each of them, and
Yeah,
there's
me too.
something, that's just, rather than, when you buy a CD, a blank CD, and you put music on it or whatever, it's completely different because, like I said, it's got the actual picture on the disc itself. So there's something really different about that. It must be the same as back in the day when people would have the first albums on vinyl, and you'd have like that sticker on the album itself with your name on it, and and side one, side two, or side A or side B, or or in the case of of Queen, on Queen 2, side white and side black. But it's just, yeah, there's,
But the reality these days is, most people are digital, and the hard copy, the vinyl and the CDs are very handy for advertising purposes.
yeah.
I mean, I used to sell quite a few. I used to do a regular gig at a pub every Saturday, and play for a couple of hours at a big brewery, and it was nice to have a few CDs on the table. Yeah, they sell much better than people aren't going to buy your digital music, so you do make a bit out of that. But I just love the idea. But you just can't afford to keep doing it when you're doing albums. When you do as many as I do as well, so it's just not feasible to keep having the. I still haven't worked out a. I've tried to make them myself, the covers, and it's been abject failure so far. So I'm still trying.
But I can see where you're coming from, because you're right. I mean, even personally, most of my listening is done digitally as well. I suppose it's streamed, where so you've got your Apple Music and your Amazon Music nowadays, and all these things, and the quality is that good now compared to what it used to be. And also streaming speeds are a lot quicker now, so it's simpler to go that way, and it's you don't have to go out with a little Walkman now in your pocket, or it's on your phone, or so it's I can see how it's easier for people to listen to music that way.
Pretty tough being a musician nowadays, I mean, a professional musician that I don't rely on income from music to put food on the table. I'm not saying I don't earn it and money and don't do okay, but I don't rely on the money from music, and I think it's pretty tough if you're trying to. Well, obviously this year particularly, but even ongoing, because Spotify and all these places, you get so, I've had a few songs. I occasionally get a check from Spotify of $4.21 or $3.17 or something after about 2,000 listens, but it's certainly very difficult to make money, and people in the music industry have actually got to start to work out other ways of making money, because it ain't easy now to make it out of just straight music. You've got to find other ways, and there are other ways. There are all sorts of ways you can make money.
So when you're putting your show together, how do you pick the theme for each episode, and how do you choose the songs and get hold of the songs?
9 times out of 10, there is no theme.
Okay.
There you go, that's easy. So only occasionally do I have to do a theme. I've had a few people who have recently have said they'd like themes. Themes become very hard because as soon as you have a theme, you've actually got to find enough songs that fit that theme. And that may sound easy, but in practice, it's not so easy to do. Because what happens, I found, as soon as I wanted to do a theme, I found that I pretty much had to go back to the same people that I knew really well all the time. And not being funny, but not everyone wants to hear the same. No, not everyone wants to hear the same 10 musicians every time. So to be able to get a wide range of musicians, I found very rarely. So the only 2 themes I've really done was one I did a Christmas special, and I asked people if they would give me original Christmas songs, and that was a big hit and my second most listened pod ever. And the second one was only the last one, which I did from a song skirmish. But after that, between that, I do not in any way choose a theme. I let the music stand by itself. So every day I'm trawling around for a few minutes somewhere, and I've obviously at the end of form last year and at 50/90 last year, and then from people I know at 100 Days of Songwriting, and people at 5 in 5 Song Fancy, and from the Fearless Songwriter. Have collected songs over time from all those places and contacts, and there's new ones coming out every day. Obviously, once you get to a lot of people, then you subscribe, and then you hear when the next song comes up. And basically, I've tried as long as I could to try and get new artists each time. So I do as little repeating as I can. Actually, come to think of it, I did have one other theme, if you want to call it a theme. I had a listener's choice after about 6 or 7 episodes, and I asked people to send me a note of people that they'd been heard in the first 6 episodes and which one they'd like a second song from. So I did that. But generally speaking, it is a bunch of songs. I obviously, when I get the songs together, if I'm going to have, say, 10 songs, let's just say 10 songs, I do look at the 10 songs, and I've probably got 15 or 20 available, and out of them I pick 10 that I think give as wide a spread as possible and fit together in the, it's not a science, it is an art. You just got to have a bit of a feel, and I pick the 10 I think will best go together in a way. But I don't know that I really try. I try very much to be careful how I back a song into the next one. But overall, I'll play a rap song first, and I might play a ballad second. But if I'm doing that, I'll probably talk for a bit longer between the two to try and differentiate the gap. But I try and keep as wide a range across it as I can. And as I say, there's no magic to choosing, but my first run, I look for people I have never played before. That's the first look for. Unless it's a special theme, I try and play new people. Then if there's not quite enough new people, then I will then start to play a few songs from other people. I hunt people down. People I've heard that I like, I'll hunt them down if I can. Sometimes that's challenging because all of us that go by silly names, like myself, and people don't know what your real name is, and you've got to hunt them down, and then you've got to, because my view is I like to make sure people know that I'm going to use one of their songs. To be fair, I don't have to, because I never take a song that people don't say is available for download. If they say it's available for download, technically I guess I can take it, but I always try and ask people first. And some people are hard to find. But I think pretty much now I've managed to get to the major people that I really, really wanted to get to. And people still some people send songs to me. Other times I just go hunting. And obviously with form just been up, and I'm a part. You probably don't know about 100 Days of Songwriting. We've just had an EP or album challenge to write an EP. Was to write an EP in February, and I think about none of those people except me are in form, and I think about 20 something people have done an EP. So there's 100 songs, brand new songs. So there's songs everywhere, and it's not good because the form people come on, and I guess quite a lot of people that my listeners are form listeners, but even they like to hear other people too. And so yeah, I'm hoping to get quite a few songs out of 100 Days of Songwriting on their EPs that they've just released, and get another podcast out of all of that. So I've not seen any signs of running out of songs. I am finding it harder to find new artists, I guess, but they appear. I'm sure there's some more informed this year.
Absolutely. What was just in passing? I was going to say, when you mentioned about having a theme, it makes me Bob Dylan. I think he does a great job with his theme time, Aaron. It must take him absolutely ages to come up with those songs that he has in his show. If you know of that radio show that he does.
Yes. Look, I think that's a really valid and really interesting show, and that's probably his uniqueness. My uniqueness is something different. My uniqueness isn't that all the different songs. My uniqueness is me to be linked to each one of those people in some shape or form. That's where I'm aiming for across a wide range of things. It's very hard. I mean, don't compare myself to Dylan, but he has access to such a different range of music to me. Yeah. And that's the problem. I'm limited to the number of original songs. And so if I said tomorrow I want to do all songs about the colour green, what I know is that, great people that they are, but I'm going to get Alex Clages is going to do one for me, and Duct Tape's going to do one, and Gwyn Jones is David Gwyn Jones. Fantastic people, but I don't want to keep using them every time in the podcast. So finding all the other songs for a theme is difficult sometimes without using the same people. And so as long as the show's still interesting and I'm getting enough songs, and if a theme appears, like Christmas was great, Christmas was really cool. And I think we played a lot more songs. I think we played about 16 Christmas songs, and there was an amazing range of songs in that, and some were a year or 2 or 3 years old, and some were brand new, and that was really cool. And I do like the idea of themes, but just sometimes it's too hard to get a theme.
Absolutely. What you're doing technically, it's almost like the good old-fashioned mixtapes, but with you talking in between the songs.
Yeah, and as I said, it is a mixtape, and it's like we did, I guess, if you like I said, but probably, it's interesting when you talk about influences, because that's that Nick Hornby influence. I said about that book about places in his life and time. I like that story that goes alongside the songs. So I like the fact that I'll play your song and I say, this is Marv Smooth. I met Martin 3 years ago in Form, and him and I talked about so-and-so, and we collaborated on this song, and I've always been interested in the way he plays guitar, and and so that's my piece. That's how I want to drive my podcast. That's my little slightly unique offering is the relationship, and I've probably lost it a little bit lately. I've got to dig that back up a bit more again, but because I've got to remember that not the same people listen every time, and so I need to re-say some of those things. But that's the piece I aim for.
So I'm guessing that when you put the show together, then that you're recording the inserts with yourself separately to the music, so you'd then edit that together into a cohesive, so you're going from the introductions to the show songs or the post-song chat, and then you edit the songs in at that time, or do you actually record it all as one? Do you actually do the talk and then the songs and then talk about them?
I'll tell you my process, shall I? That's probably so. Normally, I'd sit down and I would say, right, I'm gonna. This is the week where I have a book review. So I send off a message to Ian Glencross saying, Ian, can you do me a book review? And he knows exactly how long. It's about a 6-minute segment, and I've probably already selected a guest. Let's say yourself, and I send you a message and say, okay, we're going to do I want 3 of your songs. I'd like to have a listen to them before, and I'll listen to those songs, and then so the featured artist is live. It's live, only edited, and my rule is I never edit out. I pretty much only edit out. I never add anything. I only edit out, So I never say anything or add anything after we've done that interview, but I might cut out. I think I've said to you previously, Martin, I usually find I edit out a lot of what I talk about, because overall I usually find people listen to my guests, not to me. They can hear me anytime. So that's done as a one hit. But the rest of the show then, so I then have got, let's say I've got the 8 songs. I place them in my workstation, on a timeline. I stick in the piece from my interview about, let's say, the book review. I then stick in my interview, and I then draft a script. I do it in relatively shorthand, but I put it up on the screen, and I draft a script for the whole rest, and I do the whole rest in one hit. The reason I do that is I find I get a better quality of recording because there's no patching or cutting. I start at the beginning and I do the intro. I introduce the first song. I take a breath. I do my talk about what we just heard. Take another breath. Then I talk about the second song. Then I say, and now we're going over to Ian's book review. Then I take a breath. Thank you, Ian. Then I do the next song. And I do that all in one go. I know I'm going to get the same quality tone. I'm going to get the same quality. Then I throw it all into my workstation and I just cut it out and fit it around the songs. And that's how it's done. I have a piece of music introducing that I wrote myself, an electronic piece of music, which is my intro and outro. And that's how I patch it back together in one hit. So that's my process.
Wow. And you've basically explained there what the structure of the show is as well, and how you structure it, which is yeah.
So there you go, 2 for 1.
That's it. Yeah. You're a professional podcaster. You know what you're doing.
Look, it's like anything. You do it enough, and you put enough pressure on yourself over time. Yeah, sometimes you either would give it away, or you get better at it, don't you? You know.
Absolutely. So, have you got any standout moments from your shows where you've thought you really enjoyed it, or it's been something different and it's just memorable?
I think. Look. You're always afraid of offending everybody when you talk about highlights, but I think the most fun I had was you have a terrific musician out of London, and his name is Dan Razza. I don't know if you know him, and he does a couple of radio shows over there. If you haven't listened to Dan Razza, Raza, do yourself a favour. He's on the verge of being a name. You know, he's got some big people giving him good reviews. He's a tremendous singer-songwriter and an all-round lovely guy. And I interviewed him at some ridiculous time. You know, it was probably 4 a.m. for me and about 11 at night. You know, we were both at really silly times. And when I do my interviews, although I only use audio, I usually put the video on because I can see them and I can give people signs, you know, sometimes if it's handy. So we'll have the video on, but I don't use it for playback. Okay. And Dan had trouble. I always remember Dan had trouble with his camera, and I'm trying to concentrate on asking questions, and he's upside down and sideways, and he's the loveliest guy. Honestly, he's a pleasure. If you can, and being that I think he certainly does radio shows. He might do podcasts. He certainly would be a guy worth talking to, Martin. He's just a top bloke and a top musician. And my wife said to me afterwards, "You really enjoyed that, didn't you?" And obviously it came across. And you know, I've enjoyed doing all of the interviews with people, but Dan he's just a top guy. He's just an absolute pleasure to interview. Very smart. You know, one of these guys that's really laid back, and then you listen to what he says and you go, "That's clever. That's right. That's smart." You know, I will have to get him on again because he's just fantastic to interview, and he's been so supportive of the podcast always. If I post it now, he's one of the early ones, you know, and he's a busy lad, and he's out there mixing it with some good musicians, but he's never not had time to give me some feedback and a thumbs up. And so, yeah, Dan Razza, top bloke. Got to listen to his music.
I think that's one of the good things about doing podcast actually, is sometimes you can meet people who are also in the same business and make podcast, who are really supportive and they're friendly and give you advice, and you know, there's just, for the most part, it's a warm community.
I quite like the people sometimes who you don't really, you know, listen about, and they're probably a little way out of your comfort zone. I interviewed Ken Tiller. Do you know? You obviously know Ken Tiller, who's a a lot younger and a rock musician. Great interview with him. Really enjoyed talking to him. Really nice lad, and really interesting, very different perspective. But yeah, I really enjoyed talking to him too. But as I say, so many of them, you know, I've had so many good people. A guy that I do who's just this year, the first time he's been on form, and he's a tremendous artist. His name's Dan Tans, TANZ. He's worth a listen to. Dan has a YouTube channel, and he does a song every day, and he does it live every day, just about. And he has camera on him, and you can see exactly what he's doing and playing, and what instruments and what he's doing. And he's a lovely musician and a pleasure to talk to as well. But there's so many of them. I can't even remember all the names now. So many people. Kat Pierce, she was fantastic. She's a teacher from out of America and plays slightly different music. She does a lot of that Renaissance stuff, and she was fascinating to talk to and has a enormous knowledge about music. So yeah, they're all different in their different ways. But just for out and out fun, I just smiled all the way through the interview with Dan Razza. He was great. He was just fun.
That's great. So what podcast do you listen to yourself then, John?
I'm terrible with names. I've got a list of them, and I just keep clicking on them, and people saying to me, what do you listen to? Well, of course, there's Pods Like Us, of course. We can't forget that one. That's the main one, isn't it?
If only.
I'll look for the brown envelope later.
Checks in the post.
I listen. Look, as I said, you tell. I mean, obviously, I've listened to G Slade's one a few times. So that's really interesting. He has some very interesting people on there. That's really cool. I don't know if is it actually a podcast, the one that Callum Carlisle does? Is that a podcast, or is it just a show?
I think it's a podcast. I think.
Yeah. So I listen to Spanish Rocks or something like that. So I listened to that one. I one day I listened to that, and I turned it on, and the first song he played was Smokey Robinson and the Miracles, and the next song was Mine. And I thought, now there's something I didn't ever dream would happen. I don't know quite how well I stood up, but it was still a nice thought anyway. So I obviously listened to them. I've got a few American ones. I'm quite interested I'm very interested in lyrics too, and I listen to a few things as far as people talking about lyrics and stuff like that. So, but I don't listen to hundreds of podcasts on music. There's not enough hours in the day. I'm so busy building my own. I'm so busy writing songs, and I teach music, and I play music, and I do my own albums, and and I collaborate with a lot of people, and I write music offline that no one ever sees at all because it's done, and doesn't ever see it because it's all under license. But there's just not enough time. So I don't listen to 100 podcasts, and I actually know I should listen to more. And in fact, I think I alluded to this the other day that I'm doing about 2 more episodes of the podcast, and I'm having a couple of months break. That'll be the end of season 1. I'm actually going away for the first time for a long time, and I'm going to be away for a couple of months at least, and I'll be travelling around Northern Australia where it's COVID free and we can travel safely within a state. And I'm intending to listen to a lot more podcasts, and I'll be up for hitting you up for some good tips.
Yeah, that's similar to, I think you've heard before, where I've mentioned to people that I'd love to one of these days when the 50/90 songwriting challenge is on, I'd like to do a road trip of the US, and then the idea is to stop off at different homes of people who are also doing the songwriting challenge and collaborate with them, and that would be a great time to just be able to, in the van or whatever, we'd be driving from place to place, listen to podcast, and sometimes a journey or driving somewhere or traveling or adventuring, it's a nice place to have a podcast in the background.
And 50/90 would be a good one because it's not got the same hectic pace as Form has. Form is full on. Yeah. Somebody sent me a message today, an English gentleman, name just escapes me at the moment, and a very folky type singer, and he said to me, John, he thanked me for commenting on his songs. He was a newbie, and he thanked me on the amount of comments I put on his songs. He said, don't you sleep or eat because you've listened to so much and you're so much here. And I said to him, what are these concepts, eat, sleep in February? I didn't know they existed, And I go full February, I go full on, and I just sponge everything up and do everything I can do. And 1st of March, I'll I'll ease right down, and I'll say I won't write much, but I just know I will. So I just kind of help writing. So it's just a matter of doing stuff. I've written I must be nearly 1,500 songs I've written over the years. So it's a lot of songs. But I'm sure there's another 1,500 in me yet.
Just to go off on a tangent, do you think that your love of lyrics could be related to your love of Dylan and say the Beatles with John Lennon's writings? Do you think that could be what's influenced you to be, for a love of lyrics?
It's a funny thing, Martin, and I've not quite got my head around this. I'm a very reflective person without being morose. Do you know what I mean? So I reflect a lot, but I don't get upset about my reflections. They just are what they are. So my reflections are healthy reflections. I was unfortunate 20 years ago now, when my children were quite young. My wife died suddenly, and I brought up my children for a few years by myself. Life's gone on, and I've been very fortunate to meet another woman, and I'm very happily married for quite a few years now, for about 16 years as well. But the interesting thing is, I'm a numbers person by a background from when I was a child. I wasn't a word person. And the reason I said this, my first wife was a word person, loved words, everything about words. Now, and I don't know, maybe subconsciously after she went, I felt like I had to pick them up. I mean, I honestly don't know. But when I look back, when I was 20, I wasn't really interested in words. I wasn't. I wasn't particularly interested in the words. But by the time I was 40, I was really interested in the words, and now I look at words before I listen to music. So I've definitely evolved. Who knows why? Possibly the great influence of my first wife on the words. But for many years I listened to songs, and afterwards I could sing you the tune, but I wouldn't even know what the words were. But now I'm a mine of information on lyrics. So I somewhere shifted. I don't know quite how or when. I can only guess that she had significant influence on me. And my current wife is quite a lyrics person too. She if she knows the song, she'll know all the words. So it's interesting, isn't it? But yeah, maybe I'm making up for lost time. It's all possibilities. But yeah, I'm always interested in finding a good line in a lyric. I'd rather find a good line than a good riff these days. As much as I love it, and I sat there trying to find all riffs on my guitar all the morning, but I love to find a new line or a saying, or I love it when I write a song where something comes together. And I think of I watched a show, and you obviously know about this. I watched a show, Joanna Lumley on the Spice Trail about 2 years ago. And she went, and part of the Spice Trail, she went through the back of Turkey. And I after listening to an album called Caravanserai for many, many years by Santana, I never actually knew what Caravanserai actually meant. Well, now I do. Basically, Caravanserai is a medieval motel. That's what they are. So a caravanserai is these little places that were on the spice route, where people would come in, leave their camels outside, and stay the night in the building, which was a caravanserai. And I was listening to her talk about this, and she came out and she said, "Oh, that was a wonderful evening. It was a lovely place. I'm really, really interested. A really interesting place. I wish I could stay longer. But to quote a Turkish proverb, the dogs bark, but the caravan moves on." And I went, "That's a song." And I wrote a song that day called that, and it is the lead track off my second album. And it's still to this day when I play, my wife plays it with me. It's one of the songs she actually sings with me. Wherever we go, people ask us to play that song. And it's called The Caravan Moves On. And, and that's a lyric. And that it inspired me in a second when I heard that line, the dogs bark but the caravan moves on. Pretty much saying life, it's life and everything. It's a wonderful short way for saying so much. And they're things that my wife used to go. You think I was mad because I'd see a sign on a shop or a cover of a magazine, and I'd get the phone out and take a picture because I'd see a line that I'm a bit less manic than I used to be because I've written a lot of songs. But there was a time where I was just obsessed with finding that next line. It was wonderful. But yeah, it's a good story about the Caravan Moves On. But and it's funny. To this day, it's still one of my most popular songs.
That reminds me of Paul McCartney with the Run Devil Run, where it's based on he saw, I think, this medicinal bottle or something in a North American store, and it said on it "Run Devil Run," and he just thought, wow, I need to do a song called that. And then he did. He wrote that song, I think, really quickly. I think he said as well.
Yeah, I think sometimes. I mean, it's there's no magic. It is what it is. Sometimes you just got to do it straight away, or it's gone. Yeah. This one, I just wanted to. For the minute I heard that line, I wanted to stop the show and go and write the song. I just knew there was a song, and it did write itself. Honestly, it's not a particularly complex song. It's a relatively standard progression, and it's not exactly, but it's certainly a play on where the dog barks, but the caravan. And then I just wrote it. It was done, and you don't get that kind of inspiration all the time, I like the Nick Cave, who actually went to the same school as one of my sons, a bit later, but he was earlier. And Nick Cave once said, inspiration is for amateurs, perspiration is for professionals. And that's often true. We all look for inspiration, but a lot of time it's just down to hard work.
It is. In songwriting, definitely, we find it, because you'll get that initial spark, and then suddenly the perspiration comes where you get a good first verse, and then suddenly it's like, where am I going from here? And then the sweat starts to come out, and then it. Yeah.
People are always interested in my skirmishing because I write songs like so quick, and people say, I don't know how you do. And I tell them, when I was about 10 years old, my brother was quite a good pianist, and he used to play the piano, and he had another friend who was a professional pianist, who became a professional pianist, and they used to sit around playing the piano together, and Kevin Chapman was the guy's name. He used to make up words.
Yeah.
And I would have been 10 or 11, and they were sitting there playing one day, and they got halfway through, and Kevin said, I can't think of anything, and I sang the next 4 lines. And they all looked at me and said, Hell, can you do that? And I said, I'll do it as much as you like. And from that day on, if someone asked me to give them 4 lines of verse or 8 lines of verse, I could do it since I was 12 years old. So I'm not saying they are going to be the best songs in the world, but if you said to me, John, I can pick a guitar up, and if you give me a chord progression, I can make a song up and play it without any words. I can make the words up, and I can usually make it rhyme every time.
Yeah.
Just by doing it. I'm not saying they're going to be great or anything like that, but it gives you a start, and it gives you confidence, because if you know you can write something, then you can actually spend time on writing something good, because you've always got a backup, because you can throw something together. And I used to do this at music festivals a bit. I'd go and we'd get people to give us words, and we'd write a song on the spot, and it's good fun.
That's fun. Well, essentially, what you're saying is, going back to, there must be other people that do it as well, but thinking of McCartney again, where he'll say that he'll write a song, and he'll make sure that he's just got as much of that song done in that one session as he can, even if he has to use words as what he calls block words, which are just there to fill in a gap.
Absolutely.
And then he'll come back to later, and a lot of the time he'll sort of like replace them, and sometimes he should have replaced them. Sometimes
that's true. And when you go to sing it too, like I used to get into trouble with a few of the slightly more anal people in song groups when I would write the lyrics down and then sing a song, and people would say, that's not the lyrics you sang. Because, I'd write the song down the best I could, but when I was singing it, you feel the cadence is wrong, or or it doesn't work. You need to say it is, or there's another word, another descriptive word needs to go in, or there's too much fluff and you want to take a descriptive word out. And because I'm natural of doing things on the run, the first time I sing a song, my wife when she used to sing with me, she used to drive me mad because we'd be singing and I'd sing something different and she'd say, "That's not what you wrote down." And I said, "Well, I just thought that was better now, I get what she was saying. She was right, but yeah, I used to. So certainly from my first draft, but I would say I more often than not get 100% of my song in some form first go. Sometimes I get only a bit done, but I'd say if I don't do it close to finished in the first go, it's usually going to be a painful process. It's almost never easy if I can't do it in one go. For me, it either goes and flows, and then unfortunately, what I found for a while in some of my older songs, and I could dig some out now and throw them away, because I found, to my ear, I know that the first half of the song's really good and the second half was just trying to finish it, and it's not very good. But because I'm that sort of person that I want to finish it, I found a way to finish the song. But the quality, the first 5 lines might have some wonderful lines in and the rest is a bit drossy filler, So I really had to work to get past that and say, well, if it's not good enough, it's not good enough. And if it is, it is. But don't just finish it for the sake of finishing it, as a final finish. But yeah, I definitely tend to finish in one go, as close as possible. You get a feel. For me, as I said, you can't speak for everyone. Everyone's got their different skills and styles. For me, I get a feel about a song. I feel it, and if the time passes, I lose. I'm one of those people that I lose that feel, and I can't remember how I felt and why I really wanted to write it like that necessarily. So if I don't get it out there and then, it's never going to be quite as good. But I know others who love to play for days and days and weeks.
Absolutely. So what advice would you give to people starting out in podcasting for the first time?
Don't try and do the easy stuff. Don't try and make things too difficult for yourself. Play to your strengths. If you're good at interviewing people. And if you're not as good at cutting things up and patching, do things light in one hit. Don't try and set yourself unrealistic timeframes and goals. Unless you're trying to be a professional and make a lot of money at this, you've got to have fun doing it. If you're not having fun doing it, why are you doing it? Enjoy it. So do things that you feel comfortable with. As time goes on, it's the same with most of us when we learn to play an instrument. At first, you just do the basics and you just get things running. And then as you get better at it, then you experiment a bit more and you try a few different things out. But I talk to other good people who know about podcasting, because they're the same as musicians, most podcasters. They're generous people who are always happy to give their advice. And just do it nice and simple to begin with. Don't try and be too clever, and as I say, stick to the bits that you're really good at and then develop as time goes on. You do have to work. The one thing I would have to say is, if you want to get a podcast and you want to get reasonably successful, you have to be a bit pushy at first. In music, I tend not to be particularly pushy, and I found it a little bit tricky having to push my podcast on people and remind them for a while. But I after a while it settles down. But certainly for the first month or two of it, I pushed the podcast quite hard. In every forum I could, and 1 or 2 times I got told to bugger off. But I tried to push it as hard as I could, and now it stands on its own, and I don't do much pushing anymore. But yeah, just find your niche and have a crack at it. But I think that is the other piece of advice: is try and find something just even if it's a tiny bit, just something that's your way. Try to find something that's yours. That's what I'd say. And have a go.
Absolutely.
Like, it's the same with music or anything. Have a go. Put it out there. People don't want to listen. They won't listen. Move on. Try something different. Have another go. Do something different. You know, you just try something and see how it goes. If you want to do it, do it.
Always test the water.
Yeah, absolutely. You know,
Absolutely.
and yeah, I mean, you can get really, you know, I mean, I've worked in customer service and stuff like that. You know, you can go in and do segmentation of your customers and make sure you've got the right audience. I mean, you can go as far as you want to go, but you know, for most of us who are just doing this as amateurs, you know, or semi-professionals at the very most, put it out there, see if people like it, give it a go. That's what I'd say. Same with the music, give it a go.
Yeah. So, how can people find your show and get in touch with you, John?
Well, Songwriters and Original Songs, SOS, on all the, you know, the 155,000 channels that are available, but the obvious ones being Apple, iTunes together, Spotify, Google, you name it. My provider is Buzzsprout. You can get it directly through there. I have a Facebook page called Songwriters and Original Songs, which isn't one that enters in any discussions. It's simply a place where I post it and people can click in if they're a FB person, so they can be notified every time when a new link goes up. I also then, as much as I can, I link all the artists that I play on there. So if people want to listen further to an artist that's been on my show, it's usually inside as a comment within the listen of the podcast. So that's where you find me. You can go there. I do also have a specific email address for anybody who wants to talk to me outside of any of those forums, and that is, unfortunately, it's called Paradiso, spelled differently. It's COOLPARADEESO @gmail.com. So called Paradiso, but 2 E's and an SO on the end. And so if people want to send me music or talk to me further, they can. But if not, go to, you know, at Facebook or Messenger, and I'm pretty good at answering. I'm normally very quick in answering. So, and I'm always happy to talk to people about pretty much anything.
That's great. Okay, thank you, John. Thank you for talking to me.
That's a pleasure. Nice to talk to you again, Martin.
And you too. And thank you everybody for listening, and hope you listen again to another episode of Pods Like Us.
Hello.
Hello, John. You okay?
Yeah, I'm good, thanks. Sorry about that. I was on the phone, so
It's all right. It's okay.
I was on the phone to my son in England.
Wow.
Well, on Messenger, he was just talking to me.
Right.
He said, I've listened to the podcast, your podcast.
All right. Okay.
How about that? There you go.
Yeah. As in, is
Okay.
listening to your podcast?
No, yours.
All right. Wow.
Yeah. I said to him, he said, what's it called? I said, Pods Like Us. He said, oh, that's that Martin Marshmead guy. I said, how did you know that? He said, I listened to it. Isn't that weird?
That is very weird. It is.
Yeah.
Dear me.
So there you go. So I've got your note.
Okay.
I've got your plan. So they're the sort of things you want to talk about. Yeah. But you know me, I'm easy. Just say what you want and I'll talk.
Yeah. Dear me. So how's your day been?
Oh, I had another shit day, Mark. This is the second time in a week I've been to a funeral. So
Oh, dear.
unfortunately, it was a muso today. The guy who taught me how to play mandolin, 2 years older than me, went to bed, didn't wake up. Never been sick in his life.
Wow.
Terrible, eh? His wife's a really, really good jazz singer and local identity. They're both really, yeah, lovely, lovely bloke, Rob. And he just went to bed and didn't wake up. Had a massive heart attack in his sleep. 67 he was.
Wow,
So it was a pretty shite day, really. But yeah, he was a great bloke. The one thing he wouldn't want us to sit around being too miserable. He was the life and soul of the party. Told the best banjo jokes in the world. So
makes a change to drum jokes.
yeah. Well, he played in this lovely trio called. So it's a double bass player and singer and a banjo player and himself on mandolin, and he's a singer as well. And they were called Too Much Fun. And they played bluegrass pretty much, sort of,
right.
And they were just fun, and it was always entertaining to go and see them because there was a lot of chat, and they were a good band to go and watch. I actually wrote a couple of songs for them as well, so I wrote a couple of songs and traded them for some more mandolin practice. So but yeah, he would be greatly missed. Lovely man, but that's the privilege of getting old. You've got two choices: you either die or you get old and watch everybody else die. So and that wasn't meant morose. That's just how it is, isn't it? If you get old, you're going to see the privilege of getting old is unfortunately losing people. So that's life, I'm afraid. So
I'm sorry for the loss of a great man, by the sound of things.
Yeah, he was a. I know a lot of people say shit when someone dies, but he was a pretty good bloke. This guy, he was a volunteer firefighter. He'd fought fires down here in Australia. He worked for the emergency services in his spare time, and he was just like he did. He was just a good bloke, and it was just unfortunate his time was a bit too soon, really. But it's unfortunately sometimes happens. So it's been a couple of hard weeks, and there's always a bit of mortality too when they're around your age group, So yeah, but it wasn't a funeral; it was a memorial service, and
right.
I think we had 400 people there, I think, in a small town.
Wow.
So we were actually at the back. We were out there to put something at the back with speakers at the back because the hall was completely full and overflown, and so yeah, big do. But yeah, good man, good mandolin player, and be sadly missed in the town, So, so sorry, that's the way it goes. So how are you going? All right?
Yeah, not too bad. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Good. And the other day was all right. Our catch up was all good the other day.
I thought so. Yep. Yeah, and that's
good.
That's ready to go for tonight. That is so. Yeah.
Is that right? Oh, well, there you go. Awesome.
Yeah.
No worries.
That's a quick turnaround, that one for me.
Yeah. Look. Yeah, mine just depends. Sometimes I think my last podcast, because I did it from a skirmish, which is unusual for me. I think I turned it around in about 2 or 3 days, and
wow.
And that was doing an interview afterwards as well. So I think I did the skirmish on the Saturday, I think, and on the Monday I interviewed Sean McGower, duct tape guy, on the Monday, and I released it on the Wednesday morning. So that was pretty tight. That was pretty tight.
Yeah.
But it's like you get pretty efficient after a while. So
yeah.
Mostly I go through and just cut out me talking. I always think if guests have come on, people want to listen to them more than me. So when I do the editing, I just cut some of my stuff out if we're short time. Because you never know when you're interviewing people. Sometimes they'll speak forever, and sometimes it's like pulling teeth, isn't it?
It's a funny thing, isn't it, when you look at when you're editing and you see your own wavelength is like tiny compared to everything else that's going on in the show. You got like these little bits, and then there's this long bit with somebody that you're talking to, and then you sort of like say a few words, and then you can actually see it on the screen.
I've got to the stage where I find it easier. I might have told you this. I actually, when I've chosen all my songs, and I have 2 segments. I have usually one like favourite songwriter, or it's a book review by another guy I know in England actually, and so I know I'm going to have one of them after about song 3, and then I know I'm going to do an interview and do 3 songs after about song 5. Then I find the rest of the songs and I throw them in, and then I actually do my own script in one go from beginning to end. I actually do the whole thing in one go. So I talk about the first song, and then I take a breath and then talk about the second song, and I go through and do the whole lot. Then I put it in and then I just patch it either side of what's the songs. I find that way I make less mistakes and I just get one flow and the sound's all the same and there's no worry, it's gonna be the same level of sound, and so I just do it in one hit. It's pretty nice and easy. That's okay. I mean, except for of course the actual interview bit, which is all done in one go. But in between each of the songs, it's all done in one hit. So
you're going to have to say that all again later, when I ask you.
Oh, that's all right. That's okay. That might be a secret. I might not want to tell that one.
Oh, right.
They might think, my people might think, God, he's good at filling all that stuff in. Yeah. But okay.
I think we'll just call out your son, if you like. Call out his name, and I'll thank him for listening to the show. So, what's your son's name?
Tom.
Tom Nicholson. Yep.
Yep.
So, Tom, thank you for listening to the show. So if he hears that, that's going to be in the ending bit then for him to have a listen to and hear his name.
No worries at all. Yeah, he's in London. I think he's in Greenwich. I think.
I like Greenwich. I like Greenwich a lot. It's lovely there.
Well, I don't know if it's Greenwich. I think he said Greenwich High Road. I don't know something. I don't know very well, so I don't know.
Yeah, there's the college there for sailors, I suppose, or seamen or whatever. But yeah, that, and then there's the Maritime Museum there as well. That's nice there.
Of course, it's the famous Greenwich Mean Time, isn't it? So
it is. Yeah.
Good old GMT. Yeah.
That's right. Yeah. Which we're in at the moment.
You are, and I'm in the. Everyone assumes I'm in something different to what but most people always assume. Everyone, when they talk to me, they think I'm in Australian summertime. I live in one of the states that doesn't have summertime, so
right.
I'm in Australian Eastern Standard Time.
Yes.
So we have no daylight saving here. So we are the same all year. So we alternate between England, 9, and it moves around depending. So we only change. We never change. It's only when you go back and forward that we change. So.
Right. Okay. Oh, that would be so much easier.
Yeah, it is, but it gets like bloody 4 o'clock in the morning, But it doesn't really matter anymore to me. It used to, but now it doesn't matter. My biggest problem is technically I live 5 minutes from the border, and 5 minutes away it's an hour different.
Yeah. Well,
so
yes. Yeah.
If I go across the road into New South Wales from Queensland, now it's 9:07 there. It's only 8:07 here. I could tell you some wonderful stories about that, but I spent for ages. I'm a bit of a techno person, so I'm pretty good for my age group. I'm very, very good technologically, and so lots of people that I know who are not as savvy. I spent ages swapping people's phones over because in those days, people, 15 years ago, people weren't as savvy, and they all used to have these problems that their phone would keep changing every 2 minutes. Every time they walked around the house, it would keep going back and forward because it was right on the border. And it knew the time was changing. So, and of course, people, they just didn't know. But you have to go and put your phone on manual because they were all on auto.
Yeah, of course.
But, 15 years ago, people with their iPhones didn't know about manual and auto settings and all that sort of stuff. But I had a friend across the road here who said to me, my phone, I keep missing appointments. So I look at my watch, it says 9, and then I look at my clock, my phone, and then I look an hour later, and it says 8, and then it says 9. It keeps changing. And I said, yeah, you've got it on auto. So wherever that magnificent border is, it just knows, and it just keeps clicking back and forward. So there's some challenges of border towns, I tell you, and there has been with lockdowns too. So, but there you go. It's always fun.
It is.
We missed one funeral once because we forgot. We almost missed a wedding because we forgot that we were an hour different. It's a pain in the bum.
Wow.
It's a pain in the bum.
That does sound, yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So it's a bit odd, but you don't think about these things, these border towns having different ones. I've been known to go through 3 states and they're all on different time zones. That could be fun too. South Australia it has a half-hour different time. It's one of the few in the world that has a half an hour. Because, nearly all time zones are 1 hour on the line. South Australia has half an hour different.
Yeah, yes, I've heard that. Yeah, but
so that's really weird. So if you're driving down through here, it could be 9 o'clock here, and then it's 10 o'clock in New South Wales, but it's eight. And I can never work out. Trying to work out, is it half an hour or an hour and a half? So from where we are, so it does get a bit confusing. But there you go. It's life.
I think the Chinese chose the right way about it, because when they were years and years ago talking about different time zones and everything, the Chinese government said no, we won't have any. We'll just have the same time for the whole country.
Yeah, and they would be across a few zones, wouldn't they? For sure.
Yeah,
the size of China, for sure.
Yeah, the size of China, they would have had at least 3 or 4 time zones back then. But no, they're just one time all the way across, which
is that
surprised
right?
me.
I've been to China. I didn't even notice, but I probably didn't move around very much. Yeah, it would be interesting about your light and day. That's what you get when you get a good, strong communist government. There's no problem. They just tell you the answer. You don't have a choice.
That's true. Yeah.
If they don't like it, they get the tanks out. So
yeah.
Yeah.
Get out the flowers to put into the cannon.
That's right. Yeah. All right, you want to do this?
Yep. Okay, John. We'll do this then. Right.
I'll just follow your lead. You ask, and I'll answer the best I can.
You ask, and then I ask, and then I'll just leave you to keep talking and make everything better.
Yeah, just pull me off. Just pull me into line if I go off wandering. It's okay.
So, how was that, John?
Yeah, good. No worries at all. That's fine. Thanks. I've got plenty out of that.
Yep. There's nothing you think that we need to touch on or that's been missed out or anything?
No, I don't think so. We talked about a wide range of things in there, didn't we? So
we did.
As well as just a straight podcasting, we talked a lot about musical influences and styles and encouragement. All I keep trying to push all the time is that most of what I do is all about encouraging people to have a go. That's my big thing, and that's why, as well as the podcast, that's why I listen to so much, and that's why I give so many comments and offer to assist people where I can. I just, as I said, I don't have a hang up about it, but I know that probably I wasn't always dealt the fairest hand when I was younger about my music, and I would hate to see people discouraged. So anything you can do to encourage people to get into it is a good thing, and it's a good thing to get into.
Yeah,
I get fun out of it.
Yeah. I love the positivity that you give to people when you leave, when you leave your comments on people's songs and that, and it's like that little ray of sunshine to people's days when you do that. I'll just say that.
That's right. It is a way of life for me. I was only talking about it yesterday. When I was a young boy, my father worked as a pharmacist. My father died when I was 6 years old, but when I was about 5, my dad used to come home from pharmacy about 3 nights a week, and my mum would do an evening shift at a freezing works, and they'd pass the baton, and my dad would sit with me at the front door. We used to have a half door across the front door, and we'd sit there, and just before she went out to work, we'd be sitting there, and he'd sit there with me and talk to me, and somebody would go past and he'd have a chat to them, and my mum would say, "Who's that?" And he'd say, "I don't know." And she'd say, "What are you talking to him for?" And he'd say, "That poor old dear hasn't probably seen anybody else all day. I might have just made her day." And I can't discount that's had a big influence on how I comment on stuff like this. I had a comment the other day from Carla, Liz Petty. She sent me a message. I wrote a song called, in a skirmish called "Once Was a Hero," and it was one of those ridiculous, really, really silly prompts. It was pet food, and I thought, I can't write crap about pet food. So what can I write about? So my brain, as it is, I wrote a song about a returned war hero and how life didn't do him any good, and that he was so poor he had to get rid of his dog because he couldn't afford pet food. I mean, it sounds pretty quick, but it was written a bit better than that, but you know what I mean.
Yep.
And I wrote that, and I sang it pretty straightforward, and it was all right, you know, for an hour song. And she came back to me and she said, I listened to your song and it made me cry. I work with animal shelters, and so many people return their animals because they can't look after them. We're actually running a new program giving people money to help them feed their pets. And I said to her, thanks for telling me that, because, you know, at the end of the day, I write most of my songs, A, for myself, and B, you do hope that it moves someone. And so when somebody comes back and tells you that it moves them, and it's someone you respect as well, it's great, isn't it? You can't have a bigger pat on the back than that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you always enjoy it. All right.
Right.
Well, so how often does your show go out now?
So twice weekly. So there's 2 episodes every week.
How do you find the time?
I don't know. I really don't know. I like to block record them, but because I needed to buy a new laptop at some point and my old one stopped working, I went a month without actually being able to record shows, because I'm trying to do it on a seasonal basis. So I'll release them in a clump of 16. Well, this one will be 24 episodes over however many weeks, 2 a week, so that's 12 weeks, and then have 2 months off and then come back again. But the idea was originally, during the 2 months off, which would have been December and January, I was going to do all the recording, which meant that if I'd have got it all done in those 2 months, I could be a bit more relaxed with the editing. But because I didn't have a laptop for most of that time to be able to record with or do the show, I ended up that didn't work. So I'm still chasing myself now.
If you get caught in a couple of times I've got caught, you know, something hasn't quite happened and you start to rush, and then when you start to rush, everything turns to shit, you know. It's amazing how quickly it can, you know. The recording doesn't work. One day I started getting this crackle on my microphone.
Okay.
I changed my microphone, I changed my leads, I couldn't find it. I just couldn't get rid of it. In the end, I recorded my stuff on my iPad, because they actually have very good microphones. I had to get a very quiet place, and I've fortunately got some sound stuff, but I had to, for about 2 episodes, I had to move over to that. And I took everything apart about a third time and put it back together, and I've never had a trouble since. So who knows? I don't know. But that, of course, happened to like 4 hours before I put the podcast out, you know, and then everything then was chasing your tail after that. But yeah, I'm going to have a break for don't know how long for yet. So I'll do one next Wednesday, and then one maybe I'll set it up before I go, and so there'll be 2 more, I think, and then that'll take us to about 22 episodes, and then I'll have probably a month off. I might only have a month off and do a few more and try and get a few backed up, because I'm going away a second time probably for about 2 months, so that'll be interesting.
Okay. Anyway, thank you very much, John. I'll chat to you again soon, and I'll let you get on with whatever you're up to
thanks,
now.
Mate. You ever get stuck? If I'm not away, I'll always try and help you out, mate. All right.
Thank you very
Cheers,
much, John.
mate.
I like the group chats as well, so I'll invite you to one of those again sometime.
So, catch you later then.
Thank you, John.
Bye.
Take care. Bye.